So I am recording now. So last week we had 12 people in the program, and this week we have 15. So that means there's been 3 people that joined, and we did get a full house on Friday. I think we got everybody. So if you're new to the program, I want you to make sure that you go into the My Canvas and you check, particularly with the SIP course. So everybody in this class is also in SIP together. On that investment course, we did not have an introduction. We had a real lecture. So there is, I record the lectures in OBS, and that way if you talk or something, your picture won't be in the recording, and it's posted online within 24 hours. So I should have 2 postings up there, one from our intro. I think I did record the intro and put it on for this class, kind of take a walk through My Canvas. Was there any questions with that so far? Like the My Canvas, the navigation of it. So far, so good. Okay, and then I did have a student last week have a problem with the Respondus. So Respondus is the monitor. You have to have your camera in order to write a test. We do have a quiz in SIP that will be on Monday. So our 1-hour spots on Monday for SIP are only for testing purposes if we have a test that week. So they're all in your My Canvas calendar, and I want you to really pay close attention to that calendar. For this class credit, we won't normally meet on the Fridays. The only time we meet in this class in the 1 hour will be those presentations. So there was an announcement made today by the college that said we will be online for the full semester. So we're going to have to book time online. And actually, it's a credit class. I could take a minute to talk about that. How many of you, are any of you gamers? Gotta maybe some. Now, do you
A little bit.
do you stream any of your games?
No.
No? Okay, so the software that gamers use is OBS. So is anyone familiar with OBS? Oh, good. So it is a free downloadable software, and that's what I used to teach. So I do have this like plexiglass in front of me, which of course you wouldn't have. I wouldn't expect you to do that. But when I do a PowerPoint, and this is getting into our PowerPoint, this is just a regular PowerPoint, which I've made a JPEG. So I've saved them as JPEG files with a black background. And then I use a color key in OBS to black out the background. So what you would do in a presentation possibly is if you have a blank wall, a white colored wall or a light color, like I see, Ryan, you've got a pretty blank wall behind you there. Is that like a pale, it's almost white. You could do a chroma color too. So what you could do is have a black writing PowerPoint, block it out, and you could do this. You couldn't write on the board, but you can do a presentation pointing to stuff. Look at me change this background now. But you can do that and have a PowerPoint going so that you can, and we'll work on that. But if you can master that, the 4th semester class has a presentation that we do. It's a case competition. And that case competition is in front of employers. So the employers last year saw a few of them did use the OBS and they were interacting with statements and they were immediately offered jobs. So there's a lot of, every time this year's presentations won't be evaluated that way. They're only evaluated by me. But next semester and going forward, anytime we have guest speakers in, always think of it as a job opportunity, because that's what we want to do, is get the employers in front of you and make sure that you have opportunities. So the Respondus wasn't working for somebody yesterday, but I got an email from Ryan saying you did get it to work. Right, Ryan?
Yeah, I got it working for the most part. Like it was like a little glitchy, like it was lagging a little bit, but I got through the steps up until.
If you guys can give it a try, go in and try to load it and try to run it, and then when are we together again? Thursday. If bring any problems that you have to class on Thursday, and we'll try to deal with them so that you're set and ready to go for Monday. And Monday's test will be on the content covered in the introduction module. So there's 2 videos that are pre-posted, and then a recording of our class. So if you want to review those, they're on the investment vehicles and asset classes. That's what the test will be on. So now I'm gonna actually pause the recording. Again, I'm getting into our content for today. And it's really a nice place to start is what is credit, okay? And I always start recording on the beginning of my my PowerPoints because I tend to forget that. Then we miss our whole lecture. So that's to remind me. Uh-oh, I paused. I don't know why that's lagging. So first thing I was going to ask is about your experiences with credit. And I want to ask particularly Albert and Navneet. Well, Navneet, no. Who's here? Who's been here for 3 years? Navneet's been here for longer. So Albert, you're off the hook. Navneet, what have you noticed different about credit and the attitude towards credit in Canada than it was in India?
Actually, in India, I didn't use credit card, so I'm not sure about India, but here I'm using it. I have 2, 3 credit cards, and I think it's important to pay your credit. I think credit history should be clear. Like we have to pay it monthly or according to what we are like having it from it.
Oh, absolutely. We should.
Like using it.
As advisors, that's what we're going to do. We're going to absolutely encourage our clients to do that and get them on the right path. But generally speaking, and I asked in India particularly because anecdotally, this is what I've been told before, Ryan, when I used to teach that BE 450 class in general business, a lot of students, we talk about it, and a lot of the Indian students would say, I don't understand credit. Like we don't have a lot of credit in India. And then Philippines, if anyone's from the Philippines, they if they borrow, that's almost a stigma. It's like, oh, they can't afford it, so they're borrowing. In Canada or North America, but let's focus in Canada, not just the US, it's so readily available here. Everybody uses credit. It's easy to get. And, there's no stigma. We're buy now, we wait for nothing. In India, I was told that like even mortgages, you didn't borrow for a house. You get married and you move in with your husband's parents until you can afford to build or buy your own house. I don't know if that's still the case or in the areas that you're from, but it was not really, people didn't borrow. They wait and they saved up. Well, that's actually not a bad idea, but that's not what we do in Canada. In Canada, it's buy now, pay later. And like I said, wait for nothing. So how many of you have a credit card? Most of you, right? I would say most of you. So let's pick on, Tyler can't use this thing. I saw Andrea, or I don't know why I'm calling you Andrea. Alexandra, thumbs went up. Alexandra, when you first got your credit card, why did you get that credit card?
So I got the credit card actually, I think when I turned 18 or 19, and it was because I was going into school, like into college. And it was basically like kind of like to have, like that cushion in case OSAP didn't cover like my extra books or like things that I needed for college.
So you made the decision to get that? You actually decided, what, you have to be 18 in Canada,
yeah.
18 years old to obtain credit. That you actually, woke up and thought, you know what I should do today? I should really think about getting a credit card.
Yeah, well, especially too, because I kind of wanted to build my credit as well. So, so I'd put like gas on it, and then I would from work, it would go in my checking, and then I'd pay gas off right away just to kind of get that cash back and get that credit going. So
that's perfect. Yeah. That's a great, responsible way to start building credit. Navneet, you had your hand up, or is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I was saying, like you were saying, we don't buy mortgage or everything in India, especially in like Asian countries, maybe. Mm-hmm. Like they buy their houses or everything, like car, on cash, or we can say on debit or credit. Mm-hmm. On debit especially, like I saw here, the difference is that if I have to buy something, I'm gonna take it on credit, like my phone, my laptop, MacBook, anything I have to buy. But in India, they are like, we can buy it on debit. No need to take. They feel it like credit is like a debt for them.
Well, it is a debt.
Yeah.
Actually looking at it the right way. And that was one of the culture shocks that some students have seen on arriving at Mohawk campus when we were there, is they walk around and they see all these students with brand new phones and brand new computers and think, and like all like brand name clothing and things like that. Like, wow, there's a lot of wealth here. And then only to find out that actually none of that's been paid for. It's all been used for purchasing on credit cards. That's just sort of a social norm, I think. I don't think I agree with it, but I believe, I think we could stand to learn a lot from some of these cultures that save up and buy what they can afford when they can afford it. The reason I was picking on Alexandra, because I don't know that I believe that Alexandra's story. Maybe somebody else here could tell me or admit that when they got their first credit card, that morning when they woke up, they had no idea they were going to get a credit card. They didn't think about it at all. Maybe they were checking out at a store and someone said, hey, do you want to save 10% on your purchase today? Apply for this credit card. Or they were at a bank and somebody said, oh, you're 18 years old, you should get a credit card. You need it to establish your, like, I'm not disputing how she's using it or that it was a good thing. I just think the idea might have been planted by somebody else selling a credit card. Is that fair to say? Is that sometimes people don't always, somebody with a clipboard chase you down in a mall and all of a sudden you have a credit card? Does it seem like a good idea? Clark, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I can answer my perspective on that. I literally basically just got mine because I was tired of my parents having to buy stuff for me if I wanted to online shop. So that's sort of how I got mine. I don't really use it that much. Sort of like Alexandra, if I use it, I just pay it off. I don't.
Well, of course you're already on the right path because you're in financial services.
Yeah.
Did you research all the different kinds of credit cards, or did you go to where you bank and say, I need a credit card?
No, I don't. I just got like the minimum credit card. I don't really know a lot about different credit cards or anything like that. So hopefully I'll learn a little bit.
You're going to learn a lot.
Sure.
When we have a whole unit on credit cards, and we're going to learn there are big differences between some of them. And unfortunately, when you get your first credit card, it's usually somebody's selling you a particular card, and that's the one you get.
Yeah.
It might not have been the best credit card you could have got. And with when you're establishing credit, there's two things we got to be worried about. How many people are looking at your credit? So you can't apply for credit everywhere. It's going to negatively affect you if you keep applying. And you want to keep it for a long period of time. So if you're already buying and paying off, you're establishing this nice credit. If you cancel that card now, that goes away. So all of your work is gone. So what we want to do is make sure that people, when they get their first credit, that they're making an informed decision and getting the credit card that's right for them and not canceling. You got to keep it for 2 years, okay, so that we can establish some sort of firm credit. But we'll talk about different ways to build credit.
I had a question, sort of off topic a little bit, but
that's okay.
That's okay. So for countries that have systems like we were talking about where they don't really loan out money and it's just kind of their cultural norm, how do the banks, how are they profitable? How does that work there? Just curious.
There's a lot of cash that changes hands in other countries. So I don't think the banks are, in Canada, our economy is financials and energy. That's the basis of our economy. So you're looking at it from our lens, a very Canadian lens, where a huge chunk of our whole economy is the banking sector. And I don't know what percentage of the economy that would be representative. That's a good question, though. We could do a little research on that and see the different profitabilities. Alexandra, you had a question?
Yeah, sorry, I have a quick question. So when you were saying to keep the credit card for 2 years, so now let's just say an 18-year-old, 19-year-old got a credit card, and let's just say their limit's $1,000, and they end up bringing it up, and then they're like, you know what, I really don't want it to be $1,000 because I'm gonna spend more. So they want to drop their limit but still keep their card. Will that affect their credit? or anything, or
If you lower your limit on a credit card, it shouldn't. It should, the credit bureau report should say lowered at customer's request. And that's fine. That's responsible. What happens though is if somebody has really high limits and then they get consolidated and paid out and lowered, then it's lowered by credit issuers. So these are, we're going to look at some actual credit bureaus as well, so you can see the notations that are on it. And a lot of times it's not a matter of getting approved or declined for a credit application. It'll be what rate are you charged. So risk and reward is offset, same as credit and the price. So the higher risk you are of having to repay, the higher cost it's going to be. They'll charge you more interest. So when you're developing and building your credit, the reason why I say leave it for 2 years is because the most important, well, the most expensive purchase that you're going to make is a house purchase. If you're going to make a house purchase, the mortgage can be up to 25 years that you're paying. So to take the hit on a car loan that's 4 years or something, a little bit higher rate is okay, as long as when you go to negotiate your mortgage, you've got a nice credit bureau established and you're getting the premium rate on that, because that's where you're going to save like thousands and thousands of dollars. You'll see. We're going to do some math. I love the math, so I know you guys love math. Navneet, is that a new hand up or is that from before?
That is before.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So one thing I don't want to do is when we have these classes together, I love this conversation. I don't like to just repeat what's in the slides. So I have those there. This is for us to work on it and to kind of build on that. So one of the things in there was good debt versus bad debt. And what it comes down to is bad debt is when we buy an asset that depreciates. And I did an example in the slides I hope you look at. It's a car, because a car depreciates like 30% the first year. A brand new car, as soon as you drive it off the lot, you lose 30% of the value. So it's gone down in value, but your loan, you haven't paid 30% off yet. So sometimes with the loan payments, you're not paying them off as fast as your assets depreciating. And at the end of the day, like if I have a 5-year loan, at the end of 5 years, the loan value's worth nothing, but that asset that I bought might also be worth nothing or very little. A good debt, on the other hand, is that after this 5 years, the loan is worth nothing, but the asset that I purchased accumulated and it's worth more than I paid for it originally. So those are the things we should not encourage, but those are the things that are good to borrow for. But as far as borrowing for these depreciating assets, it's a losing financial stance. So when we borrow to buy a car, when we borrow to buy anything that depreciates in value, then it's, we're losing off the hop. Now, can you imagine, is there any questions? Does everyone understand what I mean by depreciating and appreciating asset? Good. So what would be an example of an asset that appreciates in value?
Land.
Sorry?
Land.
Land, yes. So your house. House prices increase year over year, and most times, I mean, we're in a bit of a housing bubble right now that we might see a little bit of a deflationary pressure on house prices if interest rates start to go up. But houses appreciate, they accumulate. So while I'm paying down my mortgage, my net worth is growing. So net worth is what I own minus what I owe, and that's what I'm worth. So this is like a balance sheet in business with assets minus liabilities, right? But this is your personal net worth. So if I buy a house worth $500,000 today, but I had to get a mortgage for $300,000, that means I'm not worth $500,000 because I owe this money. So I'm really only worth $200,000. Now, over a length of time, this mortgage will be paid down. So even if my house didn't appreciate, it just maintained its value. As I get rid of my mortgage, my net worth increases, right? That would go up to $500,000. But with an appreciating asset, when this goes up as well, then I've got a leveraged effect. Okay, so that means I'm using the loan to leverage my net worth higher than if I tried to save up this money and buy it outright. By the time I save up enough money to buy the house is now worth even more and I can't get it. So that's a reasonable debt to enter into, is to purchase a home. What are the other two? There's 3 different types of good debt. Okay, so the second one, it's in the video too, is education. So some of you had to borrow, get a student loan to come to pay tuition to come here. And the thought process there is that if I do my 2 years at Mohawk, I'm going to be able to get a higher paying job than I can get if I don't go to Mohawk. So that's an investment in myself. That I like to bring that up because sometimes out of this program, we have students that go through the whole program, and at the end of the day, they want to be the customer service representative or the teller at a bank, and they don't need this. I'm going to try to get Yusuf. Here she is, Yampe. Yampe, we're going to try to get her being a teller like in the next week or so. So, you know, she'll be doing that without the education. She doesn't need it. If that's your goal, that's okay. Have that goal, but you don't need us. You can go ahead and get that job now. So this is to try to leverage your opportunity on the graduation side to have an investment in yourself. And then the third type is actual investments. So I can borrow to invest, and hopefully those investments increase in value at a higher rate than I'm paying on the loan. Now, if going back to our SIP class, we talked about investment vehicles and we talked about registered versus non-registered. So as long as that investment is made in a non-registered investment, so not an RSP, not an RESP, not a TFSA, and not an RDSP, then interest payable on a loan for this investment would be tax deductible in Canada as well. So something to think about. Now, what do you think about this strategy? This is actually called leveraging. Who was it? Andrew might think that that's a great idea because he likes stocks and he thinks, yep, I think everybody should leverage. Everyone should borrow to invest. Do you have your hand up, Andrew?
So if we're looking at good debt, like what if you make like risky investments and they don't go your way? That consists as bad debt, just goes either way.
No, what happens is it's still considered good debt because the purpose was there, but it didn't work out so well. So what is you multiply your loss. And that's why people shy away from leveraging. They think it's too risky. Because if you borrow to invest, not only could you lose your investment, you're paying interest on that money. So it compounds your loss. So for that reason, the leveraging for investment strategy isn't very popular. And I think it should be undertaken conservative, like with thought. I don't think this is a one size fits all for everyone. And actually, because Andrew said he likes stocks and wanted to play a little bit, I don't think I would recommend that strategy for him. You know who I used to recommend this strategy for? My debt averse clients. My clients that said they hated debt, that's what I would tell them, is maybe you should look at a leveraging strategy. And they looked at me kind of like Zach's looking at me like now, like, what are you talking about? Why would you recommend debt to somebody who doesn't like debt? Because I know they're going to pay it off. And the other thing to know that people, your clients, tend to not think of the big picture. They don't look at everything. They look at one area as most important and sometimes neglect others. So somebody that is debt averse sometimes doesn't take care of their own assets. They don't try to build their savings. It's like, I want to be debt free. I want to be debt free. Maybe you should put a little bit away for retirement. I don't want to. I got to pay off this bill. I got to pay off this bill. And they're really excited about paying that down. So think about this strategy to them. Mr. Client, I know you don't like debt. So if I was to borrow, we give you a loan right today for $50,000. And we put that into an investment today, $50,000. I'll maybe amortize that over 20 years. And because you're debt averse, I know you're going to have it paid off in 10 or 15. So 10 or 15 years from now, this will be at a zero balance. And you get the growth of this investment starting today. It gets invested now. The alternative is how much would that project, how much that would grow to, how much would I have to contribute starting at the point 0 to get to there in 10 or 15 years. And you can show them the math and show them that this is a reasonable investment to make, but also ask them honestly, if we don't do this loan today, would you start up an investment plan so that 10 or 15 years from now, you're going to have 50,000 plus growth in that portfolio? And sometimes people need to jumpstart their investment plans. Again, it's not a strategy for everyone, but I do think that it might be a strategy for more than what we actually sell it to. Any thoughts on that? Yeah, the people who tend to do it are the most aggressive investors, and they probably shouldn't do it. They need to be concerned about paying off their debt, and not everyone is. I am actually a very debt averse person myself. I don't like to owe money to anybody. I like to pay off.
I have a little story to share if you have time for it.
Excellent.
I know a person that borrowed money from line of credit for like $20,000 and invested in the stock market. And right before COVID hits, he did it, and then now he's like, he didn't pay off his line of credit, and he's down like 60 to 70% of his portfolio.
Wow, 60% down over the last 2 years.
Yeah, because he doesn't have a background in the stock market, and he was pretty much just following TikTok and like some crazy stuff.
He probably got GameStop.
Yeah.
A lot of people lost money in that. That was a bad idea. And
that was one of the investments, GameStop and AMC, which is totally the worst thing to do.
Yeah. We want to make sure that when we do investment strategies, there's a strategy and it's not timing the market. But what do you think, for people who don't really follow markets, does that, like, to lose 70% because of COVID, does that make sense? Like, everything was shut down, right?
I mean, like, if you invested in a stock that was very fluctuated, then yeah, probably. But if you invested in like banks, you shouldn't have a problem. Even like, if we watch Amazon, even through the COVID, they managed to make 70% profit in the last 2 years, which is crazy.
And that's what I think a well-diversified portfolio that's risk assessed and asset allocated didn't lose. Portfolios are up overall. The downflux from COVID happened at the very beginning, and I don't even call that a correction. Like, that's a correction, sorry, not even a crash, because it recovered so very quickly that there were so many people thinking, oh no, the world's shutting down. I'm going to put all of my money into cash, and I'm going to sit in cash because I don't want to lose my money. Remember, when we determine the asset allocation, we look at risk tolerance, time horizon, your financial and your emotional ability to take risk. We don't ask where you think the market's going because we can't time that properly. So a lot of people sat on the sidelines and missed a huge growth opportunity over the last 2 years too. So, excellent. So when you lend money, you have to wear 2 hats, okay? You are a lender, and by being a lender, you work for an institution. So say you work for a bank. You are a bank employee, but you're also a financial planner. So you also work for your client. With your banker hat on, what are your responsibilities? Like, to the bank? Well, you have to have profitable business. That's your job. That's what you have to write business, right? And that business needs to be profitable. So you can't, like I said, you're going to risk rate somebody, and we'll talk about how that happens and what the risk, the ability and willingness of that person to repay the money, and price it accordingly so it's profitable business for the bank, and minimize the losses. So we want to ensure that the risk to the bank is minimized. We want to write business that's going to be repaid. And the other thing is, you're going to have targets. Okay, so even if you do not work in a commissioned environment, you have a target. You have an amount of business that you must write as part of your job. So you need to keep those things. You got to be profitable. You have to do things properly according to compliance standards, and you want to make your targets. Now, on the other hand, you also work for the client. So what's your responsibility to the client?
You have to, at the same time as making sure the bank's good and you're good, they have to also be in a good position as well to pay off the loans that they're taking out and stuff.
Exactly. We don't want to put people in a situation where they can't pay their loans back. We don't want to overextend them. And we do not overextend our clients. And sometimes we find that bankers, when they get too caught up in our targets, we sell as much to clients as we possibly can. And that is not good for the client, but it's good for the bank. So if you've got your manager saying, push some credit cards this week, or, you need to up those limits on the line of credit that you just issued, this person qualified for more, and you're thinking, but I don't want to overextend the client. Which hat do you wear first? It's a very personal decision. And I think it's something you have to be aware that you've got to have almost a conflict of interest almost, that you do have to adhere to these two different parties. Myself, in my own practice, I always thought of myself as working for the client first. Okay, so when you work for your client, the sales will come and your reputation will spread. Reputation is going to spread one way or the other, just bad reputation spreads a lot faster. So eventually your good reputation is going to spread. As long as you're doing what's right for your client, this should take care of itself. Okay, it's very much the similar to right now. Do I work for Mohawk College or do I work for students? Well, Mohawk College pays me, and I have certain standards that I have to ensure, that we meet. But I've always thought myself as I work for the students. I went out and bought a light board because I didn't know how to teach online without one. That was my decision in response to my client need, and you guys would be my clients. So I've always done it that way. It doesn't mean it's the only way to do it. It's just something to think about. You got to wake up in the morning. You got to look yourself in the mirror every day. So you want to make sure that we're ethical and we're following the rules all the time, regardless. And it's not just the banks that are going to be pushing credit. Sometimes the client wants more than they can afford, and they'll gotta be careful. Clients can be their own worst enemy. Okay. Oh, the math. Did anyone get the opportunity to watch the BA2 Plus calculator video that's on our homepage? Please do. Okay, so BA2 Plus calculator, I have this one, but there's another one that's brown. Either one, you would have had those in math class. Look at Albert's digging his out. Absolutely. Bring it to every class. I love the math. So quick review on it. When we do present value, future value calculations, we can only solve for one variable. There are 5, and we can solve for any one of them, but only one of them. The rest of them we have to know. So first thing we got to do is make sure our settings are proper. So our PY, that's payments per year, and our CY. So when we do payments per year, if we're doing a loan or a mortgage, what should we think about payments per year? What is the right frequency to pay these? You certainly wouldn't have annual payments, right? So what do you think is better for a mortgage? So our options would be monthly, semi-monthly, which is like the 15th and the 30th, bi-weekly, which would be every second Friday or something, or weekly.
I'd say bi-weekly is the best.
Bi-weekly is the best? How come?
Because you get to pay it's 26 a year, it's weeks a year.
Right.
So that would give you extra, like if you do monthly, you kind of like you're paying extra 2 weeks.
Yep. That is called an accelerated, they call that accelerated payment when you pay on a biweekly basis. I'm here to tell you there's a little bit of shenanigans in that theory. Something that it doesn't really hold water. Because what we're saying is to take the monthly payment and divide it by 2 to be your biweekly payment, you'd pay more. Has nothing to do with the frequency. It has to do that there's more than 24 biweekly payments. There's 26. So it's not being paid more down quicker because you're paying biweekly. It's because you're paying more per month than you are in the monthly payment. So instead of that, well, let's figure out what the payment is and apply it appropriately. And we'll do some numbers, and so you get really comfortable at playing with it. But you're right. That's exactly what they call an accelerated. So the difference really between monthly, let's say monthly to weekly, because in that case, weekly would be better. So if my payment is $1,000 a month, times that by 12 and divide by 52, and what would be my weekly payment? So I'm paying the exact same amount. It's not accelerated. 1,000 times 12 divided by 52 weeks. That would be $230.77 per month. I mean, per week. Did everyone get that?
Yes.
So let's say not 4 times, because again, there's more, but approximately 4 times per month, I'm going to pay $230. So if that payment was made on the 30th of the month, I would have already had $230.77, $230.77, $230.77. The interest would be less. I would pay less interest by paying it more frequently because I didn't wait till the 30th to make that payment. But where people tend to overestimate the value of that. Because let's say my mortgage is $500,000. I don't save interest on for like $500,000 for 30 days by paying it like early. It's just that $277 for 1 month. I paid that, 3 weeks earlier than I would have. So 3 weeks interest on $230. Yeah, there is a number. It's calculable, but it's not going to add up the way that people think. So when it comes to payment frequency, regardless if it's a loan or mortgage, my recommendation is always convenience. How often are you paid? Are you paid on a biweekly basis? Then you should get your bills taken out on a biweekly basis. It's much better if you're paid weekly, for example, and your mortgage comes out monthly. You've got paycheck with nothing, paycheck with nothing. My entire paycheck goes to my mortgage. It just makes budgeting that much easier. Now, when I worked at the bank, I was paid bi-weekly. So I had all of even my investment plans, everything set up on a bi-weekly basis. I came to Mohawk College. Believe it or not, we're paid semi-monthly. I didn't even know that was a thing. So I'm getting paid on the 15th and the 30th of every month, but I have payments coming out every second Friday. Nothing lined up. It was the opposite of convenient. So we're always going to set our payments to the client's frequency. Typically, monthly or bi-weekly is what most people prefer, but it's up to your client. Does that make sense?
In that case scenario you put with those numbers, like let's say that those numbers are still true,
Yeah.
you'd be saving like $10 a month or something. So the argument that it's better in your pocket than like the convenience that you're spending is not worth what you're losing. That's
Possibly.
the argument.
Yeah, absolutely. That's possible too. Yeah.
Okay.
It's just a matter of if it's coming out on a Friday, but I don't get paid till the following Tuesday.
Right.
I just, especially if you have a joint account and the person carries their debit card in a holster, you gotta be careful when there's 2 people on the account taking the money out before the mortgage comes. Did I say that about my husband? Maybe. So let's say, for argument's sake, we're gonna say bi-weekly. So we're gonna set our payments per year to 52. So in order to do that, we do second function and the
Bi-weekly, isn't it 26?
Thank you. I should edit that out of the recording. So yes, we're going to do bi-weekly payments, which is 26 payments per year. Excellent. Good catch. Just seeing if you were paying attention. So we do second function and then our IY key, and you see payments per year. Mine says 12 right now. I just type right over that 26 and hit the enter. Now, if you then use the arrow up key, you'll see CY. And your CY, because you've set your PY to 26, will also be 26. So if you do nothing, your CY will always be whatever you set it to be PY. And that is good for a loan. When we do mortgages, it doesn't matter what your PY is. CY always has to be equal to 2 for a mortgage. Okay, so that is, you can ask Gaspar to explain to you why that is, but that's just the way it is. So when we do mortgage calculations, we're always going to have to do that extra step of the payments per year for 2. So let's go ahead and do that. So 2 for our CY, enter. So now our calculator's set to 26 biweekly payments per year with compound periods of 2 because we're doing a mortgage. So the 5 different variables that you can have. You can have a present value, and that the present value in a loan calculation represents the amount dispersed or the original amount of your loan or mortgage. So it's your initial value. The future value is sometime in the future what it will be worth. And it's not necessarily the end of the loan. Like if I want to know what the mortgage is, like I'm trying to calculate how much interest I'm going to pay over time or something like that, then I would do the end of the mortgage. So it could be 0. Like the future value at the end of the loan is at end of loan when it's paid off, right? The future value is paid off. But sometimes I want to know how much it's going to be. Like if I make these payments on a mortgage for 5 years, how much is it going to be at the end of 5 years? How much will I still owe? So it could be, or a number in the future. The N equals the number of payments. Don't confuse that with number of years, okay? Because it's only number of years if you have annual payments. So if it's a 10-year loan, it would be 260. Your N would be 260. And a quick way to do that, just because sometimes if you get 52s and things like that, like you're doing weekly payments, oops. Okay, if you're doing weekly payments, then you might not know how many 52 times 7 off the top of your head. What you can do is put the number of years, like let's say I want to do 14 years. So 14, because I can't do math in my head, I just put 14. I go second function N, and then it will tell me that that's 364 biweekly payments in 14 years. Okay, so that's just a quick way to do that, but you can always do 14 times 26 if that's easier for you. Okay. IY, I never refer to that as interest rate per year. I only refer to that as rate, because when we start talking about investments, we're going to find that there's different types of rate of return. So it's just rate. And then what are we missing? The payment. So that would be the amount of the payment based on whatever frequency. So where we can get confused is when we put the numbers into our calculator, what's negative and what's positive. So something to keep in your mind is think about money coming into your pocket or out of your pocket. So if money comes into your pocket, then that's positive. If money comes out of your pocket, then that's a negative. So a payment, do you get that in your pocket or is that out of your pocket in a loan?
Out of your pocket?
Yeah, it's out of your pocket. So we're going to put that as a negative in a loan. The money that's dispersed, do they give it to you or do you give them the initial value? They give it to you, right? And then if 5 years from now, if you still have money, that's money you owe. So that's negative. Okay, so just try to wrap your head around that. Like if we're doing an investment plan, then it might be a negative present value because I actually have to give them that money up front. So try to think in your head, in your pocket, out of your pocket, as a way to remember. So let's do an example. And I'm going to surprise you with which variable we'll solve for. Let's say we're going to have a, we're doing a mortgage. Okay. Who works part-time right now? Actually, somebody works. Oh, they wouldn't be here if they're working full-time. Who works part-time right now? Alexandra? So if you have income right now, what would you be comfortable making as a bi-weekly mortgage payment right now?
Like from what I'm making right now, what I would feel comfortable.
Just give me any number.
Okay.
For your
What I'd
budget, what would be a good amount?
On a part-time income on minimum wage, probably like $200 bi-weekly.
Okay.
That's really low, but
that's okay. What's a current mortgage rate? Does anyone know what mortgage rates are right now?
2 to 4% at most.
Yeah, they're good. Good. I just like to know how in touch we are. Let's say 3%. We give her a 3% interest rate. And we're going to amortize that 25 years because that's our maximum for mortgage. So 25 times 26. And at the end of the 25 years, we know it's going to be 0. So we're actually going to figure out how much mortgage she can have. Because normally we start with the present value and try to figure out the payment. But I just wanted to show you it's easy to manipulate other numbers as well. So try it and we'll see if we all get the same answer. Did anyone get an answer?
Got 91,627.50.
I did too. So hopefully Clark and I either made the same mistake or we got it right. Well, I just pressed clear by accident though, Clark. So what was the amount?
91,627.50 after rounding.
50. So you guys, I wrote this up, and if you haven't had an opportunity to see the video, watch it, and then this is recorded, so you can watch it, this recording again, and try it on your own and make sure that you can get the numbers, okay? So for this is the amount of mortgage. It's not the amount of house, because maybe what we didn't know is she's got $500,000 stashed up. So we can add that, her down payment to this, and that's the amount of the mortgage. And why I did it this way is because when it comes to a car loan or even a mortgage, this is how I wish people would look at it. You look at your own personal circumstances and say, what would I be comfortable paying? And then at that interest rate, what can I afford? Or what kind of mortgage should I be qualifying for? This is the opposite of what people do. People do one of two things. They either go out and find the house of their dreams and then try to qualify for it, or they go to a bank if they don't know and say, how much can I qualify for? And the bank tells them, and then they go out and I think it's backwards. If we do this with a car loan, it's the exact same thing. So rates right now are at historical lows. They make a huge difference, and a lot of the debt that's outstanding in our economy right now is variable rate, which means when interest rates go back up, their interest rates are all going to go back up. When I first started doing mortgages, back in the day, a long time ago, interest rates were just starting to come down. So we were at the historical highs and they were coming down, so that when I started doing mortgages, they had just come under 10% for the first time in a long time. And everyone thought that was such a great rate. But we've been in this low interest rate environment for a very, very long time. So what I want you to do now is figure her $500,000 home, let's call it $500,000, at 10%. What would be the payment? $500,000 is my Present value, 0 is my future value. Did anyone get $2,059.68?
I got that answer as well.
Okay, so that's the monthly payment. Now, I've used 500,000 to represent today's house prices. It certainly wasn't that, you know, when I was doing mortgages more than 20 years ago. But just to have some relevance, assuming people were qualifying for this mortgage, today they have a much different decision to make. They can either buy the same type of house and just change that 3 IY and then compute the payment. And their monthly payment would be 1091.37 for the same house. You see how much different the price would be for them. They could say, no, I'm gonna keep that payment 2059.68 as a negative as my payment. Oops, sugar snaps, sorry. And sorry, and then I'm gonna, so at that payment at 3%, I might have messed this up. I can have my house paid in how long? How long would it take me to pay that off? 284 months or biweekly payments. So 284 divided by 26. Looks like I could get that paid off in just under 11 years. So I can either drop my payment based on today's interest rate, or I can have my house paid off in about 11 years instead of 25 years, or I could buy a bigger house. What if I kept this payment, this interest rate, this amortization? What kind of house could I get? So put 25 back in my amortization and solve for the present value. And it looks like that $500,000 home could be a 943,361 home instead. That's the value of the house I could buy.
Is that 10% just like a representation of what old mortgage rates used to look like? Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
So I'm saying somebody that qualified for a $500,000 home at 10% over 25 years now has 3 different options with this different interest rate. They could have a lower payment, they could pay it off in 11 years, or they could buy a bigger house. What do you think people are doing?
Buying bigger houses.
Have you looked around lately? Have you looked around at some of the houses? Now, for those people that have been generational in Hamilton, think about the house that you grew up in, maybe your grandparents' house, the house that your parents grew up in, and the house that you're going to buy. They're getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger houses. So people, unfortunately, have used this low interest rate environment as an opportunity to buy bigger instead of pay off faster, or even lessen their cash flow and contribute to other savings plans. And I think that's a mistake, because like we can play with the numbers a little bit more. I don't want to do too many manipulations, because if you haven't watched the video, this can be a frustrating part of the lecture. But do play with them. Well, what would happen if interest rates go up? So if I'm stuck here at 3% and this is my payment, what happens when interest rates go up maybe 2% over the next 2 years? Then what's going to happen to my mortgage payment? And if I've maxed you out so that that's all you can absolutely afford because that you bought the biggest house possible, how are you gonna pay for that? And what makes interest rates go up? Have you got that far in economics yet? I really need markers that don't smear. What's the biggest thing that's going to make interest rates go up?
inflation going down?
Inflation going up.
Going up, sorry.
Yeah. So when we have a high inflation rate, the government wants to use monetary policy, except for Justin Trudeau, who doesn't think he has to worry about monetary policy. But I digress. Yeah, that's what monetary policy is. It controls inflation, so we don't have rapid inflation. So right now we've got a lot of inflation. So I think people that have mortgages that they've got as absolutely the most they can get, they're going to be in some trouble. They're going to be in some trouble in the next couple of years because I think interest rates have nowhere to go but up.
I have a question, sorry.
Sure.
Is it true that we had 20% inflation at one point in Canada?
Yes. I've got a nice index chart that I can share with you that shows inflation, the prime interest rates is a great chart. We look at it in investment class in a few weeks. It's hopefully we won't get there again to that kind of inflation numbers because that's when interest rates went soaring. Okay. So limit versus debt. When you owe a Visa or revolving line of credit, say a Visa card, you have maybe a $10,000 limit, and maybe you only spent $100. That's your debt. That's what you owe. You don't owe what you didn't spend, and interest is only charged on what you owe. So I'm gonna kind of pick on Alexandra again. She's never gonna put her camera in again. Because she said, what if we could lower our limit? What if our limit's too high? So you already thought this in your mind that maybe I shouldn't have a limit that I don't need. Do you think that if you have a higher limit, like you shouldn't do that? That's a risky thing then? Why?
So I think it's risky just because, I don't know, like you're living life. Sometimes people don't think about it, especially like I've been guilty of it sometimes too, right? So I'm like, oh, like what's another like $50? What's another 100, right? And then it ends up going up to a point where you like can't really handle it. So
it's there, right? So
yeah.
So there's usually two camps, two schools of thought on this one. The conservative one like that, saying, you know what? If you give people more limit than they need, they're going to spend it. And then the other school is people are responsible. Just because they have a limit doesn't mean that they would spend it. So I want to know which side of the fence you're on. And I'm going to put a little poll if I can. If I can do it quickly. So, oops, I want to edit this.
Isn't it good to limit the amount of open credit you have?
That's one school of thought. So it's taken me too long to do it, so I don't want to do it. So I want show of hands, and you have to put a hand up or a thumbs up, one or the other. If you think people are responsible and you should give them a limit, what they qualify for, and just because you have a high limit doesn't mean you're going to get over debt. Oh wait, the X and the check mark's good. So three people think that. And then we got some no's. Got some no. So more people are on the side of we shouldn't. We should give people what they need because people are irresponsible and they make bad choices. Well, let's look at our federal government to see what they think. A little something here. If I can, let me see. Can you, I don't know if you can hear this if I play it like this. So let me just, oops, listen here.
Proposing to raise the.
Could you hear that?
No.
No, yeah, sometimes I do that wrong. So I'll post it for you. And what it is, it's Pierre Poilievre. I love him. He is a conservative MP from Carleton, and he's disputing why our finance minister, Chrystia Freeland, wants to raise our national debt limit. And she said it's a prudent thing to do. And it's like to 1.8 trillion or something crazy like that. The biggest limit increase ever. And this was last year. She said, we're not going to use it. We're just going to raise the limit to have it. He goes, well, why do you need a limit if if you're not going to use it. That's kind of giving you permission to spend. So anyway, I thought that was an interesting discussion because we look at household debt numbers, but then I think that's part of the problem why financial literacy is such a bad, like a problem in Canada, is because look at what our government's doing. We are in debt so much, and then most people don't know the difference between debt and deficit. So I wanted to do just a little quick example, and this is for personal and for your for government as well. So first off, let's take a look at a student who has $20 in the bank. That's all they have, and they have $1,000 Visa bill. So that's what they owe because they just bought their textbooks or something for the semester. So that's a negative. So right now we're in a negative position of $980. That's a negative net worth. So that $1,000, they can't pay it off. They can't even make a monthly payment. So at, I don't know, 21%, it looks like there's $175 that they owe. That's cash flow out. So this is net worth. It's what you own minus what you owe. And then on the other side, the net worths or the cash flow statement, which is like an income statement, it's money in minus money out. And guess what? Student doesn't have any money. So nothing's coming in. So we got a negative cash flow. What happens to that negative cash flow? Can't pay it off. So that means our debt goes up. So now, next month, that's what's going to be charged. So 1175. I can't do math in my head. Stop. Don't make fun of me. 1155. Hopefully, that was it. That's our net worth the second month, and it compounds and compounds. This is debt. This is deficit. Deficit represents the shortfall in your cash flow. And when you don't have other assets to pay off interest on the debt that you already owe, that's the deficit. So when we as a government plan for deficits, it means we're not paying the interest. We're not paying off all of the interest on the debt that we already owe. And that's at this interest rate environment. When interest rates go up for us, they go up for the government too. So there's only one way, well, two ways that we can reverse this debt flow cycle. If you're this student, to have a negative cash flow and a negative net worth in certain periods of your life, you would expect that because you're in school full time, your expenses are going to be more than your income and your net worth is going to be decreasing. But we can't just keep going down, 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 negative forever. It has to reverse itself. So in order to reverse a negative net worth, we need to have a positive cash flow. Like you think about if this was 500 positive, we could either add it to what we own or we could reduce what we owe. Either way, the cash flow is going to increase. So how do we turn this into a positive? What can we do? What are our choices? Well, we either have to increase what we're bringing in or we have to decrease what we're spending. In the case of our federal government, that debt's already paid. That interest is accruing. So we can't decrease this, right? That we're going to owe that. So they have to increase what they're bringing in. How does the government make money? What's their revenue?
Taxes.
Taxes. So the government has to increase taxes or introduce new taxes in order to balance their budget and control their deficit and their debt. Now think about if that mortgage was yours and interest rates go up. So now you're paying more to your own expenses, but government's introducing new taxes. So now your income's going down as well. We're looking at the perfect storm for the Canadian landscape. And so when you go into finances and giving people some advice, debt counseling and getting this cleaned up and paid off and having an emergency reserve, that's, people need to have, everybody said an emergency reserve is supposed to be 3 to 6 months income. or expenses. And pre-COVID, everybody knew it, but I think after COVID, when so many people, lost income due to shutdowns and whatnot, that became really close to home. So you're going to have people are going to have an appetite to listen to your advice now, to say, well, we need to establish your emergency reserve. We need to ensure that we're growing your net worth and that your debts are manageable in the event that interest rates change. Now that you know how to do that manipulation in the calculation, show them what could happen. Okay, this is your mortgage today. If interest rates go up, this is what can happen. So you can lock them in, secure their rate so that the rate can't go up. You can talk to them about a lesser amount and talk about options to pay it off quicker. And that's what happens when interest rates change. Sorry, I've been chatting too much, and that happens a lot. I get sidetracked. But this is where I would like you on your own to do some present value calculations, manipulate those interest rates, and see how much the payment's going to change, even on a car loan, when rates change. So we have to think about that when we protect our clients, when we're giving credit. And that was it. So we could do an example we wanted, but it's probably enough for today. Any questions or concerns with what we've talked about today?
I have a question about the mortgage rates and like, how does locking them in work, if it's ever applicable or worth it or anything about that?
So we've got like that. It's content that we will cover, but when you get credit, you can get either a fixed rate that's secured, or you can get a variable rate that's going to move with bank prime. So a fixed rate, usually for a mortgage, you're talking like a 5-year term fixed. So even if your mortgage is 25 years, your rate won't change for the first 5 years. But if you get a variable rate, it can go up and down and up and down throughout the entire time. We do set the payments for 1 year just for budgeting purposes, so they know what's coming up out of their account. Their payment's not going to change for a year. It changes on the anniversary date and resets. But we definitely have that content to cover. But good question. Good question.
So if we're like, because we're in so much debt, if we're anticipating the interest rates rising in the next 5 years, it would be a good idea right now, or if you're going to buy a house soon, theoretically, to lock it in or fixed?
I think so. Yep.
Okay.
The problem is, who pays for that? Because the clients, now, it used to be they used to all go 5 year, 5 year, 5 year, 5 year. Now they're used to these low interest rates. So they can get like 1.5 variable or 3% fixed. And they're like, well, I want to save money. I'm going to get the lower rate. But what if rates go up 2%? Now you're at 3.5, and you can't, then the fixed rates are going to go up too. So it's a conversation that you need to have. And I think once you get those calculations down, showing them what the differences are. So this is what if we lock in today, you're paying a higher rate. So you're going to be paying this much more right now, but you get safety. You're paying for that safety that your rate's going to be secure for 5 years. I had my own sister-in-law and brother-in-law were asking, they were getting a mortgage, in my opinion, between you and I, a little over their head. I thought the house that they were buying was it was a stretch. And I thought that they were getting a little overextended. And they said, well, should we go variable because it's this? And she was pregnant. I'm like, you just bought a house that you probably can't afford. Rates could move and you're pregnant. Don't you want any certainty? So even if it's going to cost you, even if rates don't go up in the 5 years, at least you can sleep at night knowing that you can pay your bills as they are for the next 5 years to get yourself together. So yeah, they were mad though because rates haven't gone up yet. So they're like, you told us we could have been saving money. All right. So that's it. Don't deal with family. Jordan, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just had a question because I used to work at the Brick and I did their credit cards. They're like brick cards.
Yeah.
When I was doing a lot of credit checks, I found a lot of people didn't get approved, and it turned out that it was because they had so much open credit that they felt like it was unsafe because at any moment they could go and spend all the fill up their Visa cards and stuff. So I try to avoid open credit.
Yeah, two things with that. One is the number of inquiries. If they've applied for a bunch of credit, even if they haven't been approved for it, the application shows. So it looks like a debt seeker. And the second part of that is when we calculate their capacity or ability to repay, we take a percentage of the limit, not the balance. Because you're right, that's a a snapshot in time. Tomorrow they can run up those cards. So we will be looking at that when we look at how we adjudicate credit and what we look at and what we will allow people to qualify for. Even at that, it's shocking that we overextend people the way we do. So, yeah. Any other questions, concerns, anything? Yes.
I just have one quick. You said there was like a video posted online.
Yes.
Just because I joined up a little bit late. Is it the learning plan week 1? That one?
Learning plan. Yes. If you go by the learning plan, it will always have the dates, so you know exactly what we did in class. And then you click that link, and it takes you to the page. And on that page, there'll be videos posted every week of content. For the investment class, that content is also duplicated in your textbooks. You may or may not want to watch the videos in investment class. That's your choice. But credit class, there is no textbook. So that's your only content. So you have to watch the videos in credit. And then the recorded lecture will be posted underneath, under lecture.
So this one that I missed, though, I'm just looking right now on the learning plan. Week 1, it says January 12th. But I thought there was one like existing already.
What day is today? Today is the 11th. Introduction module. We didn't do unit 1 yet.
Oh, okay. Oh, is it just that like 13-minute video below?
Pardon me?
Is it that 13 or so minute video below that?
Yes.
It looks like it. Okay, cool. I just wanted to make sure I was catching up with the right stuff.
Yes. And then actually, did anybody else try the quiz?
Oh, it did ask for ID on that quiz.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so if you don't have a student card, you can use your driver's license, whatever, because I don't know you yet, so I need to know who's there. And the name on your ID has to match the name on the class list. So if you have a different name, please let me know. And your face has to match the face on the ID. But if it's a bill or something down here, what you'd want to do is cover up any confidential information and just hold up your card. I need to see your name though. So you can put tape over your address and things like that, because it is recorded.
I tried the quiz.
You tried it, and
yeah.
Wait, Sonali, because I
went
down. So I got Sonali, and it worked.
Yeah, it took like 1 minute.
So you're able to get into it. So, yeah, that it's got to be. So I can stay after class for anyone that's having problems. I have a message in the chat that somebody's having an issue, but I'm going to suggest that it's probably that person's issue if other people can access it.
Is it the one that says the learning in an online environment?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, and wait, there's more. I learned a new trick. Be as fun as look at that. There's a discussion due this week. See how the banner that crosses, isn't that cute? I learned a new trick. So we also have a discussion that's for this week on the 15th that you have to post on that, and that's the learning in the online environment. Now wait, I noticed somebody, Megan, has joined our class. Megan, we weren't able to.
Hi, sorry. Yeah, I obviously can't read today. Apparently, I thought we had class at 1. I was looking at my schedule from yesterday.
No problem. We've recorded the lecture, so you can catch up what you missed. But look at everybody's cameras on. How are you feeling about putting your camera on?
Okay, wait. Let me fix my hair quick because I look a mess. I was like laying in bed. I haven't been feeling well, so.
I'm gonna stop recording. Okay, that's it.